not in West Square Gardens.
Oh,
You
God,
weren't
no.
allowed to walk on the
Blimey.
No,
grass.
you couldn't go. Please keep off the grass.
And there was a park
There
keeper
were
in
two
West
park
Square.
keepers, yeah.
And his little house.
There was a little hut where they would
Oh.
smoke and they had a little fire, didn't they?
Yeah. Well, I don't know about a fire. I never went in there
Oh, we
to
went in.
see. Uh-huh. Well, you lot were much more adventurous. What were
But it's
you
us, not.
about 10,
I'm a lot.
15 or maybe 20 years younger than me.
I'm only 72, so.
Oh, well,
Oh, that's 20. Yeah, that's only 20
Yeah.
something years.
20,
Blimey.
23
I
years
still think I'm
younger
about
than me.
8.
Made a lot of
But it
difference.
was, you had the time of your life in there though. You pick the mulberries and it'd tell you shouldn't, but you'd sort of get away with little bits and pieces.
Oh, God, no. You daren't touch them because they were picked and given to the orphanage. You know
right.
that was an orphanage?
What, where the hospital bit was?
Yes, the All Saints Hospital.
Yes. No, I
And that
forgot.
was Charlotte Sharman's orphanage for girls. My aunt was in there, and Mum couldn't be in there as an orphan because she was 13, and so she was too old to be taken in as a child, and because that 14 they had to go to work, as did we at my age. I don't know about you at your
15,
age.
we went at 15.
So what became of her then? So your her sister went.
She was taken in to work at Miss Sharman's actual house where she lived in the square. And that was one of the houses at the orphanage end of the square, opposite Charlotte Sharman School, because that wasn't named Charlotte Sharman till years afterwards. It was always West Square when my girls were first going there.
Can you remember all the numbers where all the Baileys lived on Hale Street then?
Probably not all of them, but they lived in number 11 was Vi and George and Alan. Betty was in 13. I think Ginny was in 17, but then she moved to 21. My brother was in 21. We were in 37. Violet and her mum and dad were in 57. Mark, Gary and their mum and dad were in 59. I'm now in 56. There was one that was in 46. He was a distant relative, Charlie and his wife. One lived in those flats where Mark lived. What's that, 34? Compared to kids these days, we were deprived. You never had much at all, but you were happy with what you did have, because we had such a great big family down the street that we'd have Christmas parties, and I suppose it could have been 30 or more of us in the Christmas party. One was looking after the drink, one was looking after the music, my Uncle Ern, and
So the music, was it like, piano and singing, or?
Aunt Jim played the piano, but in later time, Uncle Ern got a record player and he would bring that over, and he loved all the old standards, Frank Sinatra and that sort of thing, Ella Fitzgerald. And so he would put all those on. And then we would do the conga down the street. This was on sort of Boxing Night, you'd be doing the conga, or Christmas night. And people would say, oh, those Baileys again. But there were so many of us that we just had the time of our lives.
Mum and and Jessie in that photo, bottom
All right.
That's a
photograph.
lovely picture.
And who's the one on top of you?
And the one, no, that's Jessie.
All right.
I suppose she was about 18 months old then. And
Was that taken in
Yeah.
West Square then? Are you looking?
oh yes,
You're looking
and
out the window.
my dad took that. He was a great
Photographer.
amateur photographer, and photographs. He took loads of black and white ones, and he would develop and print them himself.
Oh, wow.
I mean, he wouldn't take this one out, that's for
No.
sure. Not unless,
That's too big.
yes, I mean, he'd have the smaller one. I don't know that I ever saw that camera in existence. His pride and joy was a Leica.
Oh, they're very expensive.
Oh, yes, but I mean, he'd have picked it up for, small pence, couple of shillings pence.
And
And
remended
then
it.
clean them up
priceless.
and repair them, adapt them.
Did he have his own dark room to develop the?
Oh, God.
No.
Yeah, you'd have to, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
You couldn't take them to the chemist. How did you get them developed then?
He done them himself, but
Did it?
not in the dark room, in the wash house he'd go.
Oh, the
And-
wash house where the copper and the stray cats
Yeah.
would come.
So we put
Yeah, but it
blankets
was
up
a
the window and all that, or didn't they have a
Oh,
window?
He'd black that out with, I don't know, cardboard or material or something. I mean, he'd do all that before I was born, you see, because he got, as you can see, loads of photographs
Yeah,
of those black and white ones. They're Jessie,
yeah.
and they were taken about 19. She was born in 1920, so she was about 18 months there, so that would have been to 1922. My uncle and aunt lived on the first floor. Wally, Audrey, Stanley and Joyce, 4 children and the 2 parents, my mum and dad, Jessie and me. We lived in one room. We lived on the second floor. Then above us, on the 3rd floor, was an old lady and her daughter, Ethel. She was a very elegant young lady, really elegant. I can remember seeing her on 2 occasions. One occasion, she had consumption,
Oh.
and so
very-
she died during the 30s, and I was never sure exactly when. It must have been when I was very young, but I do remember seeing her. There was no water up there. They used to get the water, come down to the 1st floor where there was a tap, but no runway. There was just a concrete block or a stone
Yeah,
block.
a lot of them were like
until-
that.
Yeah. And there was just this stone sink, block about this high, with a rim around it to catch the drips. And then the main water was downstairs on the ground floor. When I was a child, the old cow lived in there.
No, a cow.
The old cow
Oh.
being my grandmother.
Oh,
From cow for milk.
I thought that you had me then.
There she is with her sewing machine, and she's doing some finishing on the hat.
That is amazing. I love that picture.
And it's only since learning that mercury was used in this production, or the finishing of these hats, I got to thinking, she wasn't just being bloody minded,
Yeah.
that how she was.
Has it affected her?
It affected, I think it affected
Yeah.
all her sons.
About this
Uncle
one,
Wal
like-
and his motorbike.
So that's Wally's dad.
Yeah. Oh, blimey O'Reilly, when Wally was smaller, around about 4 years old, I think the story was, his dad was going to sell motorbike. And so he cleaned it all up
Oh.
and he'd repainted it. And then he had this fellow who was going to come round and look and buy it from him. Wally thought he was doing a good turn and decided he would paint.
Oh.
So he got some black tacky paint because there was a shed there.
From the shed?
Oh, there's, and he painted the whole lot. Oh boy, when his dad came home from work.
Oh.
Oh,
I bet he was going to sell it to my Uncle George because he was in bikes and just lived in the next street.
oh
quite a funny
boy,
story.
did he get a pasting.
Oh.
Yeah. Poor Wally, he was always in trouble. Do you know of Gracie Fields?
Oh, of course I do.
Right.
I'm a northerner. I've got lots of her films.
She went to
and
school with
everything.
her.
I just read her biography recently.
Oh, right. Well, she had
Yes.
this very high voice.
Yes.
And she was the coloratura, you know, really. And she could do all those fancy numbers. I
Yeah.
never
The
could.
trills and the.
Yes. And my aunt could do the same thing. She'd stand in front of this mirror, making her face up and trilling away to herself, getting all these high, short notes as a staccato.
So did she train? Did the choir master train her?
No, my mother wouldn't let her go to the stage. Oh my God.
Oh no, she could have gone on. Did she feel bitter about that or not? She was okay.
Well, she never showed it,
Right.
but I feel for it because I used to sing my head off at home. My mother would say, "Oh, shut that bloody noise." So I'd go out to the loo. We had an outside loo.
We were
nothing in
talking
the
about
house.
outside. Yeah, yeah.
And I'd sit in the loo for ages. God knows what the rest of the people in the house was. Singing my head off. In 45,
Right.
she and her husband were lodgers in the front ground floor.
Oh.
Mrs. Herbert.
Oh, Mrs. Hurd.
And she was washing lettuces.
She was a lodger, so she would just have a little business selling lettuces.
Yes,
She-
they apparently, according to Jess, they used to take wheelbarrow down to either the Elephant or walk it all the way through to East Street
So where did she get the lettuces from?
from the.
Covent Garden or somewhere like that? Or she didn't grow them
Yeah.
herself?
Oh, she couldn't because she didn't own any property.
There was a fish shop, fried fish in...
Fried fish shop.
Yeah.
I thought that was in Hale Street.
No, it's Elliot's Row. We called it Vince when I was a kid. You know, as you go down Lamlash, do a right, just on
Yeah.
the left of those houses.
Yeah.
That was a fish shop.
Oh.
Yeah.
It was a lovely fish shop as well.
Yes, it was. That was Dolly's.
Yeah.
Dolly's from St George's Road.
So you got
They
it
had
fried, so you didn't.
Yeah,
or you could
fried, no,
buy,
fried fish and
like in the butter.
Oh, that was
Yeah,
lovely.
in
Don't
batter.
make me hungry.
Telford's pies, and you put your finger in a hot pie and lick all of that.
Oh, God,
It was
yes,
beautiful.
absolutely.
And we met Dan, the tattoo man, in there. He was covered from head to foot with tattoos. He used to tell us stories about Al Capone when I was, and he'd let you shake his hand. He'd say, shake my hand. I just shook his hand. He'd go. And anyway, he told us all these stories, and you thought it was nonsense. But when he died, there was a story in the Evening News. It was true. he did know Al Capone. He did work for him.
Maybe he's one of the Elephant Boys. and
No,
all
it was
that.
he was in America, and he'd
Yeah,
given
but
his.
they went to America.
Oh, well, he'd given his skin. He told us, and it was true, to whoever sold it while he was alive, and they could have his skin smothered in tattoo.
Where did he live, Elliot's Road?
No, it was in Round House. You know where those new flats are?
Oh,
The Uncle
gosh.
Building that was Round
Round
House,
House.
which was a men's hostel.
Yes, and then didn't
Yeah.
that become the London Park Hotel?
Yeah.
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 But it was, well, they were no trouble though when it was Round House, were they?
No, and then when they closed that down to make the
The
posh
hotel,
hotel,
that was trouble.
they put all these old men out of their homes. Some of them, there were officers from the army
Yeah.
even had their
And there were no
homes.
trouble.
They'd
A lot of
come
them
back
worked.
and there'd be no homes. They'd been blasted or
Yeah.
their wives had divorced them and
Yeah.
they had nowhere to go. They'd land up at these rotten houses,
Right.
and when they closed it down, that's when you had them sleeping rough.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There was no work for them. They didn't make
When did
provision.
they close
Subways.
them down? It must have been the 70s.
Yeah, it must have been the early 70s, I would
Yeah.
think.
To make the hotel, Park Hotel.
London Park
Oh, this is Cousin Joyce's wedding.
Well, at St Jude's.
Yep. Let's see who's. I think that's Auntie Rose. That's, I think her
What
friend.
year was
That's
that?
Connie, her friend, but not
1944.
the Connie that.
That was
Yeah.
during the war.
Yes. She was. They both of them had to get permission to get married because he wasn't yet 21 and she wasn't yet 18.
Whereabouts were you evacuated to? then?
Sherborne,
Ah,
in Dorset. Yeah,
so your
Lovely.
niece co, yeah.
yeah. Anyway, Mum had got me hauled back and there was nothing, quite ordinary, lovely summer weather till the blitz started in October, I think it started.
September the 7th was when the blitz started over London, wasn't it? September,
Was it
September the 7th, 1940.
Yeah, well, that's when it started. And I stopped and watched a dog fight one day when I was going back to school up over London, which was unusual because dog fights were usually on the periphery
Yeah.
of London. I was outside, standing outside George the sweet shop.
Where was that?
Yes, well,
Oh,
the
Cooks.
sweet shop. George's Cookies.
Yeah,
It was
Cooks is-
Cookies. That was his name, George Cook. Yeah. Stood out there and I was absolutely fascinated with this.
A V1 fell in Brook Drive, not Brook Drive, Dainty Road on the pub there. Do you remember the pub? I don't remember it, but his brother told me.
That surely was on
On the corner, yeah.
the corner of Dent Road and Holyoke Road.
Yeah. But my brother said the milkman was coming down there with his cart and suddenly this V1 came and fell and he thought, oh, the milkman's killed. But he wasn't. The smoke rolled and he came out with his cartons and milk.
That
for it.
happened in West Square.
Did it?
as well. Yeah, and Mum and Auntie Mary were involved in that too. That was a horse and cart, and they stopped. It had pulled out
Right.
to deliver milk, and Mum and Auntie Mary would just come out to about the square, saw the horse and cart there, thought they'd wait, get their milk and pay the milkman at the same time. Then they'd finish their shopping. Instead of which, this small bomb came down and went down into the basement to the front of the house, in the front there, because they were semi-basements along there. I don't know if no, they're not now. They've done away with basements, haven't they?
Yeah.
And exploding, of course, that brought the horse was rearing up in his wheels, couldn't gallop anywhere because the brick was stuck under the wheel, one of the bricks from the house. And identical to this one in Brook Drive. Or
Dante Road. Yeah.
So it was like a cloud of smoke, and
Yeah.
everyone thought everyone.
And the milkman was badly shocked because he'd been on the steps when it landed in the semi-basement. And so he came all days. Mum found herself climbing up the steps of one of the houses over our side of the of the houses, and Auntie Mary was at the bottom of them saying, "What's happened?" And they, God knows if they finished their shopping, but they, I think they must have done.
What was the other ones you were interested in, Luddy?
Sorry?
This one.
Oh, that's Jessie dressed up in her ARP gear. Yeah, boots and
Mask and
trousers.
boots.
And we said to her, "Go on, put them all on."
And when was she born, Jess? 20?
1920.
So she'd been 19 at the start of the war.
Yeah.
So was she in the ARP right through the war?
No, until she joined the ATS when she was 21 or
right.
22.
Tell us about you going to school, John, and being a boy in Hale Street.
It's fantastic when you were a kid because there were so many kids about. Like now you don't see kids in the street, but there were all my mates were down here and we played Japs and Germans, which in later life I thought, well at the time I thought it was a bit strange, why are we playing Japs and Germans when they were both on the same side? I was a dead Jap lying down the coke and I thought, hold on, what's gone here? The Germans just shot me. But we used to get bow and arrows, we'd make bow and arrows because there was that oil shop round by Walcott Square, you could get canes and we make bows and arrows with those.
So what shop, what was the shop in Walcott Square?
In Walcott Square, it's on the corner, you know where they did the Cray
Oh
film?
yes, yeah.
That was like a general store and you went through the back and they sold all paraffin and canes and sticks and whatever you wanted for the garden.
And how much would it cost if you wanted to make a bow and arrow then?
Not much, just pennies. Mind you, it was really dangerous because I didn't have any rubber bones on the end, but that's what we did. Another friend of mine, I remember being around West Square as a kid, a friend of mine, nobody had fridges in those days, but his dad worked for a company and he had a big slab of ice in this chest to keep the food fresh. So somehow we got old ice cubes, so he gave me an ice cube, I put it in my mouth, we ran around playing bow and arrows, and I swallowed the thing and I was dying, it was stuck in my throat. But fortunately it was ice and it melted, but I always took care after that. And in the summer you go up Bedlam Park early in the morning. Sometimes you take a roll with you or something, because there's a swimming pool up there as well. You go in the War Museum, which in the winter was very cold everywhere because we had no heating, and I always thought the War Museum was called the Warm Museum because it was warm in there. But we'd go up there and spend hours there. We'd get thrown out in the end. We'd go on the swings, because there were great swings up there, the swimming pool, the sand pits. We'd run around the park. And then we'd get a Red Rover when we were a little bit older and we'd go over to the West End or as far as Hounslow, Abbeywood, Windsor, you could get as far as that.
For how much?
Just a Red Rover, it would only, I think they were about 20 pence, something like that. But I think we were playing up so much once, a 53 bus took us across Blackheath and the conductress came out and threw us off. And she said, no, those tickets are out of date. We said, no, they're not, they're in date, but she wouldn't have it. She threw us off in the middle of Blackheath, so it could have been pretty dangerous, but I think we were just such naughty kids that that's what she did to us.
For some reason, My dad could ride a motorbike, and they'd go out on a Sunday in motorbikes with sidecars. And they'd go to take the family out, go to Box Hill and Richmond and, you know, such things.
But you went everywhere. You went to the museums, you went over to the Science Museum and the History Museum.
What, just in a group? So how many was in your little group?
In the group.
How old were you?
I was going places when I was about 6, and that seems ridiculous because sometimes my sister would come with us and she was older than me, she'd sort of look after me, but that's what you did. You know, people wouldn't do that with their children now. I remember my dad used to take us on a Sunday over to St James's Park and that, and bring us back.